Hi everyone, I'm Bronwyn Koll from Agribusiness Yarra Valley. I'm here today to talk to you about Queensland Fruit Fly. I'm part of the Agriculture Victoria Managing Fruit Fly in Victoria grant process, and we run a project out in the Yarra Valley. I've been invited to speak with the APAL people today about the prevention and management of pome fruit orchards with regards to Queensland Fruit Fly. It has been around for a while, but I think we're ready for a refresher course because the problem's not going away. I'm here to talk specifically on orchard sanitation. What have we learned and what can we do better? So just to touch on what we do in the Yarra Valley, our program is based on preparedness, early detection and rapid response. So the best form of orchard sanitation is to not have Queensland fruit fly in the crop in the first place. I can't attribute this to any one expert, they all concur. So with our program based on preparedness, early detection and rapid response, like any biosecurity plan, we have lived like this for 18 months just with COVID, and we need to have a biosecurity plan for our own farms. So preparedness is all about having communication and engagement. So that means newspapers, social media and workshops, articles in journals and radio. We have area-wide management, so that's where we work with local council, community groups, industry groups, individuals, schools and neighbouring communities. We also need to have commercial producer investment, and we have grants supporting commercial production. So the residential production of clean fruit is also supported by this much larger thing that's going on. With the early detection and rapid response, we have multiple surveillance networks. We have a hotline, and we have built capacity into our region by training members of the community. We have multiple options of where people can report. We are hoping that the emergency response process is going to be what provides ongoing support for our fruit growers, commercial and residential. At the end of the day, prevention is better than cure. So we believe that we're on the right track to keeping the Yarra Valley fruit fly free, using our funded area-wide management model and extending this right throughout the region. So I want to take a page out of the books of some well-known to the fruit fly research. The consistent message is that sanitation is the key component to the multi-pronged approach needed for fruit fly control in any space, garden, orchard or region. We can not only rely on one control measure. Acknowledging the fruit fly risks is half the problem. We need to look at the populations of Queensland fruit fly outside of our production area. If we have movement of fruit from potentially infested areas across into our region, it means that we're going to be constantly reacting to new incursions. This is the same for on-farm management. Whilst the Yarra Valley region can't block the roads and shipments of fruit like PFAs can, your farm can reduce risks and control movement of your crop within your system. And it's also a matter of controlling the movement of fruit out of your system. You can control the movement of other crops into your production system. An orchard's first step in sanitation is keeping the flies out of the crop, and that's where the early detection using real-time surveillance plays a role. It's a numbers game, and we need to get in early and not be complacent. With regards to unmanaged hosts, we have public lands with weeds and street plantings, blackberries, apples, pears, plums, locusts, wild tobacco, kangaroo apple, and ornamental species like prickly pear. Given the Yarra Valley's fertile soils and rainfall, these all grow and bear fruit unaided in the Yarra Valley, and potentially they could host Queensland fruit fly if they are around. In home gardens, I know you know the risks here, we need to also look at commercial production. For example, an orchard that's not monitored and a manager denies that Queensland fruit fly exists or has no Queensland fruit fly awareness, they don't have another chemical program in place, or they leave fruit hanging without protection. This is a regional coordinator's absolute nightmare. The same goes for on-farm management. In the properties set up for fruit fly free trade, auditors check to ensure properties do not have any non-commercial plants or host plants, and any non-commercial host plants that may be at risk need to be managed like a commercial crop. So many of us that have come off the farm concentrate on managing our commercial crops, but we forget to manage the lemon tree in the house yard. So I'm asking you guys to own it, remove the non-commercial host, or do something about managing that non-commercial host, because it's a numbers game and we need to look everywhere. Then it comes to climate suitability and crop stage. In the Yarra Valley, we could potentially host 3 to 6 generations of Queensland fruit fly, and that's weather dependent. We have strong evidence of the seasonal pest absence in the Yarra Valley. However, pest detections on my watch have been reported from January to about April, leaving our pest absence option in play during the winter period and over the spring as well. So know your area, know your season. Consider the microclimates created with irrigation and water supply and suitable shelter for Queensland fruit fly on your farm. I believe issues arose this season or this season past in areas with zero or inadequate pre-harvest baiting. The level of expenditure and effort at a farm and regional level did not match the problem that we were dealing with and that we're always going to have this season. The warnings were right. Controlling fruit fly in a La Nina year is different to a drought year. In a La Nina year, the host fruit availability is increased, and the flies are simply not knocked around or knocked down as much by the dry and the heat. Therefore, they have got a greater chance of survival. The numbers game swings in favour of the Queensland fruit fly. We need to look at susceptible crops on the farm, and we need to look at the end of season risk. Issues arise when ripe fruit on the trees is either left on the trees or it's fallen to the ground and it's not adequately managed. The Queensland fruit fly life cycle is allowed to continue. The most common issue is the cost of removal and the remnant fruit that's left, not picked because it's commercially not viable to do so. Or is it? We have to consider this investment as a season-to-season management cost. Queensland fruit fly will come back, particularly when it has other factors helping it to survive. So Queensland fruit fly will haunt your next crop if you don't spend the money on the last crop. It'll come back to hurt your region. So the cleanup after harvest is the most important thing that you can do to reduce the risk. Again, it's a game of numbers. Now this one often gets talked about by regional coordinators and its perceptions. So from an area-wide management perspective, it's important that the regional coordinators that we all help manage what the community think about what commercial people are doing. Concerns are raised in the community because the public get to see what's happening on the farm because we don't have a border around our farms. They can see through that fence. You know and I know that monitoring and baiting and cover sprays could be happening on the farm. It could be under control. But the very people that I'm trying to reach as a regional coordinator, I'm trying to teach them about working at a garden level and physically removing the fruit and picking it before it falls. So if they can't see that control program happening on your orchard, they might turn around and give up too. So we need to encourage the residential gardeners to do the right thing, and we need to lead by example. So, orchard sanitation, what we have learned and what we can do better. The best form of orchard sanitation or hygiene is the prevention in the current crop, just like the best form of fruit fly management in the Yarra Valley is based on prevention. The question remains what to do with the unharvested fruit and the fallen fruit, and this can include the damaged, undersized or undercoloured fruit and the windfalls or the fruit that falls during picking. Good berry producers in the fruit fly areas in Queensland are known for harvesting and collecting all the unsaleable fruit in a separate bucket. Pickers get paid the same per kilo for the fruit of waste. It's then centrally treated, according to the best practice, and then destroyed. This is harder in a tree fruit system. For soft fruit, the potentially infested or ripe fruit with the potential to be infested has to be pulled off the plant regardless, simply to protect the berries coming on, and this could be for fungal issues. The decision here is more about what to do with it once it's off. Should they dump it in the interrow or put it in a bucket and treat it properly later? The piece rate pickers prefer working in the waste collection models. For pome fruit, this is a different decision. In most cases, the fruit making the selected grade is picked into a bin, and often the fruit that doesn't make the cutoff is left on the tree. Its ripeness does not necessarily immediately impact the next pick in the next few days, as it does for strawberries or berries. We have to consider the Queensland fruit fly's impact on the next season's crop though. So, yes, the fruit is in the store, the Queensland fruit fly is potentially around the orchard. The fruit is left, only becoming more attractive as it ripens. Queensland fruit fly may take advantage of this to ensure their own return next season. So continue orchard controls whilst the fruit is still hanging. And if this is for a month or more, then evaluate the benefit from knocking it off and mulching it. Consider that the fruit left out there is not going up for sale, and it no longer matters that the toxicant gets in the fruit. So the chosen control processes may be able to be done much quicker. Just keep in mind the importance of the protection of beneficial insects in the orchard that we want to also carry over to the next season. It's important to monitor Queensland fruit fly post-harvest. Use this as one of your risk assessment tools, traps and fruit inspections also. Sweep and then mulch or roll to crush or squash the fallen fruit as frequently as the level of risk suggests to. Use your field and trap observations and use regional Queensland fruit fly data and seasonal weather to help assess this risk. The added advantage is the black spot and codling moth hygiene, also achieved by sweeping and mulching. The earlier the better for all of the above. All of this discussion is available in the Fruit Fly's IPDM quick fact sheet, and the web link is on the screen there. And this is what we have learnt. We all know this. Now, how do I think we can get it better? The greater investment in area-wide management is where we're going to start winning against the Queensland fruit fly. Continued and improved coordination, increasing the rate of adoption of the full set of measures, not just cover sprays. I believe that we need one-on-one support. I need extension staff to go and check that every stakeholder is on board. And we need these people from season to season, reminding people when to start their protection or their monitoring. At the end of the day, I think we need to work on the return on investment for pome prices to ensure that there is money in the bank to actually manage these issues on the farm. Next up is where I think the apple and pear growers need to get better, or at least prepare to get better in the future. I've been told heaps by pome fruit growers that we don't need to worry too much about fruit fly, as we use enough chemistry in our targeted pest program and it suppresses the Queensland fruit fly. On the screen here is several different targeted pest apple and pear activities, and that's what we're targeting. And I'm not going to name any types of chemicals here. I've had help from Elizabeth Mace at GV Crop, and we have mapped out when chemistry is likely to be applied to address these pests and diseases in the orchard. All of these activities create Queensland fruit fly suppression mid-season. So that's if we're using all of those targeted chemicals. I'm also very aware of issues with targeted pest programs, such as insecticide resistance, changing MRLs, how our programs are incorporating the IPDM approach and increasingly softer chemistry, so therefore more targeted, and also the deletion of some chemistry families. Too often we acknowledge the suppression effect on one hand, but forget to calculate it in if we omit a targeted pest measure somewhere else. So we need to look at bringing the focus back to successful IPDM, a greater emphasis on area-wide management, and prioritise the use of protein baiting early in the season. You can see here the 11 IPDM strategies for pests in a pome fruit orchard. Consider the gaps that this now creates in the fruit fly suppression strategy. So all of these green cells here is mid-season, and they are non-chemistry or specifically targeted chemistry for those pests and diseases. And you'll note that they do not have a suppression effect on Queensland fruit fly, and it's now allowed to progress and repopulate. So I think this is something really important to consider as these chemicals get omitted or as IPDM strategies get incorporated into your project. Overall, the effect is a reduced impact on Queensland fruit fly suppression and a stronger fruit fly. The risk is not in the adoption of IPDM. The risk is in the orchard management thinking that suppression is a long-term strategy, and that the risk is the orchard management thinking that there is no Queensland fruit fly in the system because of the suppression effect that was in place. So this can skew in places, and it's necessary to make sure you've got adequate Queensland fruit fly management actions planned. To me, the solution is a better baiting program and increased adherence to the whole suite of tools for fruit fly management, including male annihilation and the sanitation tasks of post-harvest management and fruit destruction. I'm open to discussions on the efficacy of baiting. I've heard about various stories. What are the barriers to baiting? I've heard that the bait formulations have only improved, and I've heard that the research into toxicants and other factors have improved baiting efficacy. I personally know of 2 experiences from both ends of the commercial production scale where baiting and hygiene was strictly followed. One is the commercial orchard with a full baiting program and orchard hygiene, no fruit fly, and the other was a smaller commercial orchard with the same program started at 1 fly threshold. I believe it can work. When we're targeting Queensland fruit fly in orchards, there are issues with only using cover sprays. Yes, cover sprays are often cheaper and easier, and we're looking at the dual application of sprays. Again, I've consulted with Liz from GV Crop, and I've also consulted with Adam from Upton Agronomy, and we discussed a lot about the current cover spray options available at the not so plentiful future of chemistry options. In this scenario, we are running out of effective control measures. So we risk the reliance on and the overuse of group 4A nicotinoids, neonicotinoids. We risk the damage to off-target species. This can be quite harsh on some of the chemistry involved in managing the insect predators. The IPDM becomes undone and mite flares can exist. We also need to consider the restrictions and the changing restrictions and changing emphasis on managing MRLs. Overall, we risk a price increase or a cost of production increase that the industry is not in a position to absorb. The importance of considering factors that affect area-wide baiting is really the right bait, the right toxicant, the right conditions at the right time in the right location, with the right area-wide management approach. But at the end of the day, I still believe we need the right price for the end product. So turning to baiting at the last minute or during a high pressure is actually expecting too much of baiting. With regards to trade, we have interstate and international export, and it's a valuable tool for the management of supply and demand for the growth of our industry. Systems approaches will add confidence to the current production and marketing, and there's some couple of APAL magazine articles that you can read on that. One of them is on the importance of farm management, grading and sorting. Another one recognises post-harvest and phytosanitary options such as long-term cool storage, fumigation and irradiation. It is better not to have the larvae inside the fruit in the first place. That's my main message. And in summary, sanitation begins with prevention. Use the whole toolkit. You've got all of the tools available to you. More stakeholders have to actively bait and bait better. It is no point saying, I don't bait because my neighbour does and he looks after it for me. We need to lead by example and demonstrate production area hygiene. You have to remember that there are people driving past our farms and can see that the fruit's left hanging. Area-wide management is valuable to the whole community and their production systems, and we can demonstrate our support for this by our own responsible fruit fly management. Understanding the environment is essential. Listen to the predictions, watch the surveillance, and make sure you're prepared to take the actions at the right time. We need better links between different crops on the farm. We need better communication with neighbours, and we need to understand what's happening in our region, within the industry, and at a state and national level. The flies in the traps, the answer is to protein bait weeks ago. So you may have to start early, and everyone should start early. So at the end of the day, early detection and rapid response and prevention is better than cure is my message to everyone out there.